Horror stories, tales.
Like and subscribe if you want to live.
The wind that came down from Black Ridge always carried a smell: wet stone, old smoke, and something else no one could name. The town of Harper's Hollow lay half buried in snow, quiet as a graveyard. Locals said the mountain was cursed, that the mines should have been sealed decades ago, but money was money and men still went where darkness promised a paycheck. That winter, the company reopened Shaft 9, an abandoned tunnel sealed since the cavern of '72. The foreman, a broad-shouldered man named Cole Brennan, didn't believe in ghost stories. He believed in getting paid. On the morning of December 3rd, he gathered 6 men outside the old entrance. Their breath clouded the air like smoke. Frost crept along their gear. The wind hissed through the cracked timber beams like a whispering throat. "Generators live," murmured one of the crew as the lights flickered, a weak chain of bulbs vanishing into the black. Beyond that, the mountain swallowed everything. Cole checked the map, traced the vein of coal that ran deeper than any shaft before. If they reached it, the company promised double pay. But as they stepped inside, their boots echoing off stone, the sound didn't return right. It came back slower, like something else was walking beside them. By the time they reached the first checkpoint, the radios were already cutting out. Static hummed, low and alive, like a distant growl under the earth. One of the miners' young guy, new hire, stopped suddenly. He pointed to the wall. A handprint, fresh, not theirs. It was darker than mud, the fingers long, pressed deep into the stone as if the rock had been soft when it was made. Cole laughed it off, told him to move, but even his voice sounded smaller now. Hours passed. The deeper they went, the warmer it got, and soon their breath stopped fogging the air. The light bulbs above started popping one by one, the glass raining down like ash. Each pop came closer. Cole ordered the men to stay close. Then came the scream, short, sharp, and gone before it began. Flashlights turned. One of the men, Ortiz, was missing. Only his helmet lay spinning on the ground, light beams shaking across the tunnel walls. In its glow, something moved, just a ripple of black behind the rocks, too fast to see. Cole barked orders, his voice cracking. They split 3 to search, 3 to stay. The air began to change, thicker now, hard to breathe, the sound of dripping. Water grew constant, echoing from nowhere and everywhere at once. Then the tunnel shifted. A low moan rolled through the stone, a sound so deep it rattled their ribs. The map in Cole's hand tore in two as the ground beneath them trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. They ran, lights swinging, shadows doubling on the walls. But no matter how far they moved, the same markings reappeared, the same handprints, the same cracks. The mountain was folding in on itself. Cole felt it now, a pressure inside his chest, like someone whispering right behind his heart. His flashlight flickered, then steadied, and in that single blink, he saw them, faces in the rock, not carved, trapped, dozens of them, eyes shut, mouths open, frozen in silent screams. He stumbled backward, his light catching movement at the far end of the tunnel. Ortiz was there, or what was left of him. He was standing, but wrong. His face turned toward the wall, fingers clawed into it. When Cole called his name, Ortiz turned around. His skin was black with soot, his eyes wide and shining like polished coal. His mouth opened, and a low voice spilled out, not his own, but something old, broken. Like it came through stone instead of lungs. "We're still here." The light burst. Everything went dark. Somewhere in the distance, the emergency alarm shrieked. But by the time rescuers arrived, the tunnel had collapsed again. 6 miners gone, no bodies, no tools. Just a single camera found buried near the entrance, half cracked, still recording faint audio, muffled breaths, metal groaning, then a voice whispering one word through static, deeper. That night, the wind returned to Harper's Hollow, louder than before, dragging a low hum down the mountainside that made the windows shake in their frames. The town went quiet. No one spoke about Shaft 9 again. But if you stood outside the mine at midnight, they said you could still hear it, the sound of picks striking stone far beneath the earth, long after the men who swung them were gone. And somewhere deep inside that mountain, a single light still moved, flickering through the dark, heading farther down where no living man should go. 2 weeks after the collapse, Black Ridge Mountain stood silent beneath a sheet of frozen fog. The company declared the area unsafe and boarded it off, but people in Harper's Hollow whispered about what they heard in the nights that followed. Windows rattled, the ground sometimes hummed, dogs howled without reason. Some swore they saw faint lights moving inside the sealed tunnel like lanterns swaying behind the boards. That's when Evelyn Carter arrived, a geologist from Denver, mid-30s, quiet but sharp-eyed, sent by the state to assess if the collapse posed an environmental risk. She didn't believe in curses or the kind of stories that traveled in whispers. She believed in fault lines, seismic readings, and pressure fractures. Yet when she stepped out of her truck and looked up at the mountain, she felt something she couldn't measure. It was as if the peak itself was breathing. Sheriff Cole, brother of the missing foreman, met her at the gate. His face looked older than his years, his eyes hollow like a man already grieving something he couldn't bury. "The company wants it quiet," he told her, lighting a cigarette with shaking hands. "They said it was a gas pocket, that's all. But the men, they never found the men." His words hung in the cold like smoke. Evelyn nodded and pushed past him. She needed to see it for herself. Inside the barricade, the mine mouth looked like a wound that refused to heal. The boards creaked against the wind, metal chains humming. Evelyn pried one loose and stepped into the black. Her flashlight cut through layers of dust, catching bits of old equipment, shovels, helmets, a rusted thermos frozen mid-roll. Every sound was magnified, every breath too loud. She reached the first marker, the place where the tunnel had collapsed, but something was wrong. There was no sign of a recent cave-in. The rocks were blackened, almost melted, and the walls bore long streaks as if something had clawed its way upward. Her instruments flickered. The temperature rose 10 degrees. Then, faint and far off, she heard it tapping. Steady, measured, metal striking stone. She froze. "Hello?" Her voice echoed back, twisted, slower, the same word replayed like a broken tape. "Hello. Low. Low." The tapping stopped. Silence filled the shaft like a pulse. Then, very faintly, came another sound, a man whispering numbers. 9, 8, 7. Her heart slammed in her chest. She swung her light around, catching movement deeper inside the blocked tunnel. A shadow, too tall to be human. She stumbled backward, radio crackling to life. Sheriff Cole's voice burst through the static. "Evelyn, get out of there. The ground's moving. We're picking tremors up here." She didn't answer. Her light flickered again. Now the tunnel wasn't sealed anymore. The rocks had shifted aside, forming an opening just big enough to crawl through. She hesitated, then dropped her pack and squeezed in. The air was hot, wet. Her boots sank into mud, and the walls shimmered as if sweating. The deeper she went, the more the noise grew, a chorus of whispers, hundreds of voices murmuring in a language that scraped her bones. Her flashlight beam caught old helmets embedded in the walls, their visors cracked, faces behind them still visible. Only the faces weren't human anymore. The flesh had fused with stone, the eyes black and glistening. One turned slightly as she passed. She choked down a scream and pressed on until the tunnel opened into a cavern vast and pulsing with red light leaking through cracks in the rock. At the center stood a wooden elevator shaft descending into darkness. It shouldn't have been there. It wasn't on any of her blueprints. The cables twitched as if something below was tugging on them. She moved closer, heart pounding, and saw words scratched into the beam with bloody nails. "Don't follow the sound." The ground shook violently. A roar echoed from below, like 1,000 lungs exhaling at once. Dust rained down as Evelyn grabbed the cable for balance. Something wet dripped onto her arm. She looked up, a helmet hanging from the ceiling by its chin strap, filled with thick, dark liquid. She stepped back, trembling, then turned toward the exit. But it was gone. The tunnel she came through was now a wall of smooth stone. Her radio burst with noise, again static, then a voice. Not the sheriff's this time. "Cole. It's hot down here." Lights went out. She froze. It was her brother's voice, clear as day. The same tone, the same rasp. "We're still digging. We found the way out." Her knees weakened. Cole had been dead 2 weeks. "Where are you?" she whispered. No response. Then, faintly, laughter echoed from below, men's laughter, the kind that sounded tired but relieved. She leaned over the elevator shaft, shining her light down. The beam vanished into endless black, but from somewhere deep below, she saw another light answering her, flickering like a candle. Her hand trembled as she reached for the crank. The rope creaked. The elevator groaned, ancient gears turning on their own. Slowly, the platform began to rise. She stepped back, eyes locked on the dark as something came up from below, a figure in a miner's suit, face hidden behind a cracked mask. It stopped halfway, jerking against the cable. The mask turned toward her, glass eyes reflecting her light. Then it spoke, not in her brother's voice, not in any voice that belonged to the living. "You came back." The light died. Outside, the sheriff waited by his car, the mountain rumbling under his feet. The radio on his dashboard whispered, full of static and faint breathing. He leaned close, heart hammering, as a single word came through, soft and trembling deeper. The mine gate exploded outward, and the wind from Black Ridge screamed again. The air turned heavy, too thick to breathe, as the wind from the mine roared out and died as suddenly as it came. Sheriff Cole ran toward the opening, calling Evelyn's name, but the sound was swallowed by darkness. The boards that once sealed the tunnel had been blown apart like paper, and the mouth of the mine now pulsed faintly with a deep red glow. He hesitated, stepping closer, the ground vibrating beneath his boots. It was faint at first, like a low heartbeat buried miles below. He'd grown up here, knew every sound this mountain could make, but this one was wrong. It was alive. He took one last look at the empty road, muttered a prayer, and went in after her. Inside, Evelyn stumbled. Through the dock, her flashlight dim and flickering. The elevator shaft was still humming, though the platform was now gone. Only the chain swayed gently in the stale, hot air. She could still hear faint laughter echoing from below, each chuckle dissolving into distorted static. Her radio crackled again, one of the miners calling out names she recognized from the missing list. Tommy, Luke, Clay. Each one sounded older, slower, as if years had passed since their voices last saw the sun. Evelyn tied a rope around a metal beam, tested its weight, and began descending the shaft. The metal was warm beneath her gloves, vibrating with every breath she took. Halfway down, she saw things carved into the wall's faces, hundreds of them, open-mouthed and screaming, their features warped by stone. They looked as if they'd been pressed into the rock from the inside. The deeper she went, the more the air thickened with the smell of rot and burning oil. Her boot hit solid ground at last. The cavern below was massive, its walls glowing faintly, veins of red light pulsing through like blood under skin. Machinery lay twisted in heaps, melted together like wax. Old mine carts were overturned, their wheels fused to the floor. She crouched beside one and found a helmet, its inside lined with dried blood and strands of hair still clinging to the padding. Something inside it moved. A centipede, impossibly long, crawled out and disappeared into the dirt. Her light caught something further ahead, a row of standing figures. Miners, or what had been miners. They stood motionless, covered in soot, their clothes stiff with dried mud and flesh. Their eyes were gone, just hollow pits that seemed to drip darkness. In the silence, a sound grew, a faint rhythm like breathing through a crack in a door. Then one of them twitched. Another followed. Their heads turned toward her in slow, cracking motions. Evelyn stumbled back, her flashlight beam trembling across their faces. "You're dead," she whispered. One of the figures took a step forward, its jaw sagging open with a wet crack. From its throat came not a scream but a low, rhythmic hum, the same sound she'd heard through the mountain. The others joined in, their hums overlapping into a chorus that made her bones shake. She covered her ears, backing toward the shaft, but the sound wasn't coming from them anymore. It was coming from the walls, the stone itself, pulsed and rippled as if breathing, faces pushing out of it, whispering in 1,000 broken voices. "Stay, stay." Her radio blared to life again. It was Cole. "Evelyn, I'm coming down, where are you?" Relief flooded her chest. She looked up at the shaft, the faint circle of light far above. "I'm here." Don't. The rope jerked violently. She froze. Something was pulling on it from below. Cole reached the top of the shaft, his flashlight beam cutting through the dust. "Evelyn." He tied himself off and started down. His breath echoed in the confined space, the light trembling with every step. Halfway down, he stopped. The wall beside him was moving slowly, like something was shifting behind it. Fingers pushed through cracks, skin made of stone and ash. He swung his light down and saw the end of the rope vanishing into a black pit where the elevator should have been. "Evelyn." Her voice came back faint, strained, distant. "It's not me." He froze. The rope tugged again, hard enough to burn his gloves. Then something climbed out of the darkness, wearing her face. The creature looked almost human, but its eyes glowed faintly red, its mouth twitching with every false breath. "Cole," it said softly, "help me." He swung his light at it, stepping back. But the thing moved too fast, scrambling up the rope like a spider. Its skin peeled where the light hit, revealing stone beneath. Cole cut the rope. The thing fell, screaming in a voice that wasn't hers, the sound echoing endlessly below. Silence followed, except for his heartbeat. He climbed down the rest of the way, shaking. When his boots hit the bottom, the cavern was different. Larger. The miners were gone. Only Evelyn remained, crouched near the edge of a chasm, staring into the dark. She turned slowly as he approached. "Don't look down," she whispered. But he did. The pit below was filled with hundreds of bodies, miners, engineers, even the rescue teams that went missing years ago. But they weren't dead. They were writhing slowly, fused together by tendrils of stone, their chests rising and falling in unison. The red glow came from beneath them, veins of light pulsing up through their spines like fire. In the center of it all was something vast and immense, shape curled like a serpent under the earth, its body made of molten rock and bone. It shifted once, and the entire mountain trembled. Cole grabbed Evelyn's arm, pulling her back. "We need to get out, now." But she wasn't looking at him anymore. Her eyes were locked on the pit. "It's using them," she whispered. "The mountain. It's feeding." The ground cracked open between them. Cole fell to his knees, clutching the edge as the earth swallowed the lower half of the cavern. Evelyn reached for him, but something coiled around her ankle, a dark tendril made of living rock, and dragged her screaming toward the pit. He lunged, catching her hand, their eyes locking. For one last second before the pull was too strong. She was yanked down, her scream fading into the roar below. Then silence. Cole stood trembling in the flickering red light, the air thick with dust and heat. The mountain was still again. The humming stopped. The faces in the walls were gone. He climbed back toward the shaft, but when he reached the top, the exit was no longer there, just smooth rock where the tunnel should have been. He turned slowly, light shaking in his hand. The cavern behind him began to pulse again, and from somewhere deep within, Evelyn's voice whispered, soft, broken, echoing off every wall, "Keep digging." The ground shook, and the mine came alive. Sheriff Cole's lungs burned as he ran through the twisting tunnels, the beam of his flashlight cutting wild shapes across the walls. Every few seconds the ground trembled, sending small rocks skittering across the floor like insects fleeing the light. Behind him came the sound of something breathing, not fast or shallow, but slow and deep, like the earth itself was inhaling. He could still hear Evelyn's last word in his mind. "Keep digging." It didn't sound like her anymore. It was deeper, layered, as though something was speaking through her voice. He stumbled over a broken rail and fell hard, his flashlight rolling ahead and stopping beside a half-buried mining helmet. He crawled toward it and froze. The helmet was still on a head, a skull with dried veins of black mineral running through the bone. When he touched it, the skull cracked and collapsed into dust, leaving behind a hollow imprint that pulsed faintly red. He grabbed his light and stood, trying to find the path back, but every tunnel looked different now. The walls were shifting, closing in, new passageways opening where solid rock had been moments before. "Stop," he muttered to himself. "You're panicking. Think." He forced his breathing to slow. The air tasted metallic, like rust and blood. Somewhere far below, something groaned, a sound that vibrated through his spine. He shone his light toward the floor and saw that the ground wasn't stone anymore. It was breathing, slow rises and falls, as if the mountain's veins had turned to flesh. Then came a new sound, footsteps echoing faintly down the tunnel. He turned off his light and pressed against the wall, waiting. The steps came closer, uneven, dragging. Then a figure appeared, a miner, face blackened with soot, helmet light flickering dimly. Cole stepped forward in relief, but then froze. The man's eyes glowed faintly red, his mouth hanging open as if gasping for air, but no breath came. He moved like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. The miner stopped a few feet away and turned its head slowly, bones cracking. Its jaw twitched once, and in Evelyn's voice it whispered, "You shouldn't have come back." Cole raised his flashlight, the beam slicing through the dust, and for a brief second he saw what was behind the miner, dozens of others standing motionless in the dark, their bodies twisted, eyes glowing. He turned and ran, the sound of scraping boots chasing after him. He didn't look back. The tunnel forked ahead, one path leading up, the other deeper. The air from above was cold, fresh. He sprinted upward. The passage opened into an old operations chamber, rusted lockers, overturned chairs, an ancient map still hanging on the wall. He slammed the door shut behind him and braced it with a steel pipe. The footsteps stopped outside. Silence. Then whispering began, faint at first, then louder, filling the room. "Cole, Cole." Dozens of voices, all in perfect unison, like a choir made of dust and rot. He covered his ears and backed away, knocking over a table. A stack of old photographs spilled onto the floor, black and white images of the first miners at Black Ridge. Their faces were proud, smiling, unaware of what lay below them. He picked one up and froze. One of the faces was Evelyn. Same eyes, same faint scar on her lip. The lights flickered. He looked up and she was standing there. Her clothes were torn, her face pale, her eyes glowing faint red. "It's beautiful down there," she said softly, though her lips didn't move. "It wants you to see." Cole stepped back, shaking his head. "You're not her." She smiled, a broken, too wide smile. "I wasn't supposed to be, but it needed a voice." The room shook violently. The floor cracked open, revealing a chasm beneath. From the gap came the smell of sulfur and something sweet, rotting. Evelyn, or what wore her face, stepped closer. "The mountain was alive before we came. The miners just fed it. Every scream, every collapse, every death. It remembered. And now, Sheriff, it's hungry again." He swung the flashlight at her. The beam cut through her face, revealing flickering shapes beneath veins of molten red rock and shadows moving like worms under skin. She reached out her hand. "Come home, Cole." He turned and ran for the side door, throwing it open and stumbling into a narrow passage that twisted sharply upward. He could feel the tremors growing stronger. Rocks rained down from the ceiling. As he climbed, the tunnel walls began to drip not water, but blood, thick black blood that smelled of burnt iron. He wiped his face and kept moving. The ceiling ahead collapsed in a burst of dust and bone, revealing a chamber above filled with old mining tools and a massive wooden lift. He sprinted to it, yanking the lever. The chain screeched to life, gears grinding as the platform began to rise. Halfway up, he heard something moving below. The glow returned, filling the shaft with red light. He leaned over the edge and saw them climbing, not miners, not human anymore. Their limbs were long and jointed wrong, their mouths filled with jagged teeth. They moved like insects, crawling up the walls with speed that shouldn't exist. He pulled his gun and fired, but the bullets only sparked against their stone-like bodies. He kept shooting until the gun clicked empty, then dropped it. The lift groaned as it reached the upper level, the air cold and fresh. He jumped off and ran toward the exit sign glowing faintly at the end of a steel tunnel. Behind him came the roar of collapsing earth, the sound of hundreds of bodies moving in unison. He burst through the last gate and into the open night. Rain poured down, washing the dust and blood from his face. For a moment he thought he was free. Then the mountain moved, the ground buckled, trees snapped, and a deep fissure split across the valley. From within came a deafening roar, not human, not animal. The forest itself seemed to shudder. Cole fell to his knees, watching as red light poured from cracks across the ridge. The entire mountain was breathing now, expanding and contracting, veins of molten light racing up its sides like fire under skin. And then, from the mouth of the mine, something vast began to emerge, a shape of stone and flesh, twisted and ancient, pulling itself free of the earth. It wasn't a creature, it was the mountain. A face formed briefly in the rock. Evelyn's face, and in her voice, that layered, echoing whisper returned, shaking the trees and the sky. "Feed me." Cole screamed as the ground gave way beneath him, tumbling into darkness once more. The fall felt endless. Cole's body slammed through layers of dust and ash, bouncing off jagged rocks before landing in thick, wet earth. The air was suffocating, hot, heavy, and alive with a deep humming that vibrated inside his chest. He groaned, pushing himself up, coughing black dust from his lungs. The darkness wasn't empty. It pulsed, breathing faintly, and every breath carried a sound, whispers, thousands of them, merging into one unbearable tone. The beam of his flashlight flickered weakly as he lifted it, revealing a cavern so massive it looked carved by something older than time itself. The walls weren't rock anymore. They moved like muscle, flexing with each tremor. Embedded in them were bones, hundreds of them, skulls with mouths frozen mid-scream, ribs twisted into the stone like roots strangled in clay. Cole's eyes darted toward a glow ahead, red and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. He followed it, stumbling through the thick mud, until the light grew so bright it painted his skin crimson. Then, he saw it, the heart of the mountain. A colossal organ, half stone, half flesh, pulsing wetly in the center of the chamber. Around it hung the remains of miners, cocooned in rock, their faces twitching with faint life. Every beat of the heart made the walls shudder, and every twitch of the bodies made the heart beat faster, as if they were part of one system, one monstrous, living thing. He took a step forward, and a familiar voice echoed from behind. "You found it." He turned, flashlight shaking in his grip. Evelyn stood at the edge of the cavern, her face still human, but her eyes burning bright with molten red. It's been waiting for you, she said softly, walking closer, the ground hardening under her feet with every step. It called you here because it remembers you, because you were born on its land. Black Ridge always belonged to you. Sheriff Cole shook his head, backing away. You're dead. You died down here. Evelyn tilted her head, smiling. No one dies here. We become part of it. The miners tried to escape, but the mountain doesn't let go. It feeds, it grows, and now it's starving again. Her voice deepened, splitting into many her, and something far older. It needs you to take your place, he stumbled. Against a rail, raising his flashlight like a weapon. I'm not one of you. The cavern trembled violently. The heart's glow intensified, and from its veins poured black liquid that hissed when it touched the ground. Shapes began to form in it, bodies dragging themselves out, their mouths gaping, eyes hollow. The miners, their skin shimmered like obsidian, veins glowing red beneath. They moved toward him, silent, synchronized. Cole turned and ran, but the ground split open, revealing a pit of burning veins. He leaped across, barely catching the other side, his boots slipping in the blood-slick mud. He spotted an old dynamite crate half buried near the wall, remnants from the old operation days. He crawled toward it, tearing it open with trembling hands. The sticks were old, leaking powder, but maybe enough. He grabbed a detonator wire, wrapping it around the fuse. His fingers bled as he worked, every nerve screaming to stop, but he forced himself to keep going. Evelyn appeared beside him, closer than before, whispering in his ear. You think fire will kill a mountain? Fire made it. Her hand brushed his cheek, and for a split second, her face flickered, the real Evelyn, pale and terrified, trapped beneath the surface. Please, help me, she mouthed silently. Then the other voice returned, louder, crueler. She's mine. Cole lit the fuse. The spark hissed, racing toward the bundle. He turned and sprinted toward the tunnel opening, heart pounding in sync with the one behind him. The miners shrieked, an unholy sound that echoed across the stone. The explosion tore through the chamber, a roar of light and heat that turned flesh and rock into one. He was thrown forward, crashing into the tunnel wall as the ceiling collapsed behind him. Silence. Then the mountain groaned again. He coughed blood, pushing himself up. His flashlight was shattered, but a faint red glow still seeped through the cracks behind him. The heart wasn't destroyed. The blast had only exposed it, now larger. Pulsing violently, veins stretching across the ground like black vines. From the rubble, Evelyn's broken body rose again, stitched together by molten veins. You can't kill what was here before man, she said, voice calm now, almost sad. The mountain isn't cursed. You are. He stumbled back, eyes wide, realization dawning. The old miners, the missing workers, all those accidents, they weren't victims. They were offerings. Every generation, the mountain demanded blood, and those who lived on its land unknowingly fed it, and Cole. His grandfather had been the first sheriff here. He had sealed the tunnels himself. The curse was in his blood. Evelyn's hand reached toward him again. It's your turn. Cole looked down at the detonator in his hand. The wire had melted, but the old revolver at his belt still held one bullet. He looked at her, at the thing she'd become, and then at the mountain heart glowing behind her. Then I'll feed it my way. He aimed not at her, but at the ceiling above the heart, the weakest point of the cavern. He fired. The crack echoed like thunder. The rock split open, and a torrent of fire and molten stone burst upward, consuming everything. The heart screamed not with sound, but with vibration, the entire mountain convulsing as it began to collapse in on itself. Cole was thrown backward, engulfed in red light, the world dissolving around him. Outside, on the surface, the people of Black Ridge awoke to an earthquake that split the valley in two. The mine entrance imploded. A fountain of red dust rising into the dawn, and then silence. Days later, rescue crews found nothing, no bodies, no tools, no trace of the mine's history. Just a vast, perfectly smooth crater where Black Ridge Mountain once stood. But when they set up camp nearby, one worker found something half buried in the soil, a sheriff's badge, burned but still legible. It was warm to the touch, pulsing, faintly like a heartbeat. That night, as the crew slept, one man awoke to the sound of whispering from the crater's edge. It sounded like someone calling his name. He walked closer, flashlight trembling. The beam flickered, catching something beneath the dirt, a human hand, reaching upward. And then, from deep within the earth, came that same sound again. Slow, deep, impossible to be human. The mountain was still breathing. Some hearts never stop beating even after the earth swallows them whole.